You have a child that is medically fragile. The very definition is that life is fragile. The very definition is that here one day and maybe not the next day.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like where people have this, it's uncomfortable, so they want to try to find comfort or try to find a solution or something. But that's the worst part, right? Like I think about the day that Jake died, and there was nothing about that day, right? It was just a random Wednesday in December. It was a Wednesday. We just got up and did our thing. It's
but
hard.
That's true for all
everything.
of us.
Everything.
Like actually, yeah. All of us.
No, it's true.
But with our kids, we can see it.
Come on with me. So we are going to see one of Jake's Help from Heaven's like OG families. We are seeing Kristin the mom and Milana, who is my love. I absolutely adore Milana. When I see Milana, I think about Jake and where Jake would be if he was still alive. They have very many similarities with this sort of undiagnosed, severely ill, but she has come so far, and when I see the things that she can do now, it makes me sad a little, because it makes me think that if Jake was still alive, he would be doing some of the things that she could do.
Hello, welcome to A Place of Yes. I'm your host, Heather Strader. A podcast about how I moved through my darkest hour. And all I can say is I dug deep, figured out where I was and where I wanted to be. And for me, the answer was in a place of yes. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to A Place of Yes. Today, I am so excited. This is actually, I've been waiting for this recording for basically since I knew I was doing this. So I'm sitting here with Kristin and Milana. They are one of Jake's Help from Heaven's like OG families. Like we have, I think, been working together for ever. I feel like as long as we've been in this journey. And for me, you know, I love all the families we work with, and I really just love the work of Jake's Help from Heaven. But with you guys, I have always felt so connected to you. Like we would be friends even if this wasn't our journey. And also that Milana, like there's so much of Jake and Milana. It makes my heart feel so good every time I see you guys. Like it's almost like therapy for me. So I'm so happy to have you here. Like I hope you know how much it means that you're on this show with me. Because it was so important, we have brought the podcast to your home. So thank you for letting us just be here. So to start, can you share with the audience a little bit about you and Milana and just your family?
Yeah, so I'm also very happy that we could do this. Milana is here with us. She's 14. She has 3 siblings. Milana has lots of needs. She has epilepsy, and she has a visual impairment and a hearing impairment. She has some blood pressure issues. She's had spinal surgery. We have bone complications, and we are in and out of the hospital quite a bit. All of our specialists are at Boston Children's Hospital, and we have a pretty unique and challenging life, which I feel that I don't have to explain too much to you, which is very nice. But to an outsider, it's an unusual sort of life. Basically, at any time, we can have emergencies where we have to jump into the car and drive to Boston.
I think that is one of the things, and you touched on it, about having to explain to people, right? Like it's hard. And it's one of the things that Milana and Jake are so similar. Like as you were just listing, you know, sort of the various complications in life. And it was like Jake, right? It's hard because with some illnesses, people can say, oh, I have X, Y, and Z. Not that that is any less tragic or hard, but it's just so complicated when it's a little bit of everything. It's all these things and not one of them. On any given day, one of them is the issue, right? Yes. Like it's either seizures or it's blood pressure or it's bones. And basically just whether it's from medications or whether it's from just the whole genetic makeup, sometimes their bones get really fragile.
Yes.
It's never ending, right? And it's hard to share with other people. I'm trying to remember the first time that you guys applied to Jake's.
I remember how we heard about you. Milana was taking swim PT. We would go every week, and when we walked in to the clinic, there was this beautiful picture on the wall. And I would always look at this beautiful picture. I didn't know who Jake was. I didn't know you. And one day I said to the instructor there, the PT. I said, I love this picture. I love walking in and seeing this sweet face. And now I know it was Jake, and he had been to the same clinic with the same PT. And she said, oh, Milana is so similar to Jake. Do you know Heather? And I said, no. And she said, you don't know Heather? Milana and Jake are so similar. And I said, no. And then I don't know if I can remember the first thing that we applied for. I want to say maybe a piece of equipment, maybe a chair, special tomato chair.
The first piece of equipment was a travel stroller.
It looks like.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, for the trip.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about that a little bit. I forgot about that.
So Milana was little. That was a long time ago. So Milana had got approved for a Make-A-Wish trip to Disney, and Make-A-Wish presented this to me, and they were like, oh yeah, we do this all the time. And I was like, no way can I do this. Like, no way can Milana do this. This is impossible. Like, we would need a car seat for the plane. We would need a stroller. Like, we would need a billion gazillion things. I was like, I'm too overwhelmed. We're not doing it. And they were like, no, we can make this work. And I was like, okay, but we don't even have a stroller to travel with, a travel stroller. And is that the first time we met? You came to my house.
Yes.
I forgot all about that.
Oh, I loved that stroller. It was lightweight. It went to Disney with us. And I was like so overwhelmed a bit by the trip and the equipment.
Everything coming. Yeah.
I just felt like, oh, okay. When you were in the room, I felt like you weren't a person that I had to explain everything to.
I've said this about you guys a lot, and in some of our families, like, this is the world I know, right? Because of the foundation and sometimes having to raise money for Jake's and do stuff, like, I have to be this other person. But the person that I am is this person, right? Like, that is sitting here. I'm the mom of I'm a special needs mom. It's what I am, right? You know that world, right? And I remember, so fast forwarding a while, I'm trying to think how this came to be, but there were a handful of times that I would come and sit with Milana when you did other things. And I mean, Brian was so excited for me to come here today because he knows it's been a while since I've seen you guys, and he was just like, enjoy your day. Like, he knows this is like, to spend time with Milana is just like to be able, it's like I'm Jake's mom again, right? Like, I'm always Jake's mom, but like, I don't know, I just love it. And
from that first day, you just went right over to Milana. She was happy. Like, you just knew, and she knew you knew.
Yeah.
As you understand, it is really hard to let go and let someone sit
absolutely
with my baby. And there have been a couple of times where I had to do something with the other kids, and I called you.
And nothing made my heart happier. Yeah. Field day. That's right.
School.
Yes, that is absolutely right.
And I said, can you just be there with Milana so I can run over and do the activities on the field? I've never done that with anyone before because it's hard.
It's hard.
You don't know if there's going to be a throw up.
Well, I was going to say, I think there was one time I was sitting here and I think she threw up on me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even
yeah.
It just is what it is. It just happens.
Happen.
The more important thing when like Milana's throwing up or Jake was throwing up was to make sure that you're clearing their airway. Like, it's not about the throw up, right? Like, it's not like, ew, gross. It's just kind of like, okay.
And
that's
and also I felt like you weren't going to make her feel bad.
No, exactly.
Even unconsciously.
Yep.
So that honestly is a theme that has come up in a couple of conversations, like with other moms that we've done on A Place of Yes. And I think as a society, as a world, like, not that people intentionally try to hurt feelings. We do live in a world where people don't put the same value on kids like Milana or Jake. Something will happen and they say stuff not recognizing she's a person too. And it infuriates me because you never want to be like, I would never want to hurt her feelings in the same way I would never want to hurt your feelings or any of our kids' feelings. I don't know. I always felt so much more protective of Jake and of Milana, and just because you have to be, right?
They can't tell us.
They can't tell us.
Said
but
this thing that made me feel.
But you know that they have feelings too, right? Like, it's,
you have to have eyes and ears all the time.
All the time, and you have to be extra vigilant, and you just have to care extra because you need to. You just need to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So going back, like, that was I didn't have to worry when I called you. I just knew that, it was a relief in a way, and a special thing that is really hard to find.
So I'm going to stop for a minute and just talk a little bit, give my little like Jake's Help from Heaven spiel so that our audience knows more specifically. So Jake's Help from Heaven is a nonprofit that my husband Brian and I started after our son Jake passed away. And you hear me talking about Jake a lot. But he, like Milana, had a very complex medical life. And unfortunately, it came to an end when he was 4 years old. And in those days following, Brian and I just knew we had to do something. We knew there were other families like ours. It has become, without a doubt, like the biggest blessing of our life to be able to work with other families like ours and to be able to sort of provide opportunities for children and adults with medical challenges really to thrive and to give them and the family things that they need. We know this life well, and we loved living this life. I think there's this misconception out there where people, you know, not even for Milana, but like for you, people will feel sorry for you. And that used to always make me so mad. I was like, don't feel sorry for me.
When people say I'm sorry to me,
You're like, for what?
with whatever I'm talking about, it just feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah, because you're like, I don't need that. Yeah, like
it can feel really lonely.
it can feel so lonely.
It
That
can
is
feel like, unless I'm sitting side by side, like with you, it doesn't, but, or another parent who I know has a child like Milana, but in our house, in our everyday life, going out into the world, you just don't see it, or I don't. Like,
Yep.
I mean, we have a really specific routine, especially for the winter. We're in the house a lot. Milana's teachers come to the house. I don't see other families that look like us. So it can feel really isolating, and it feels like no one knows what you're going through unless you're talking to someone who really does know what you're going through.
But even that world is small, right?
It's very small.
There'll be the conversation sometimes where you might say like, oh, Milana has seizures. Or I'd be like, oh, you know, Jake has seizures. And then someone will tell you a story about like, you know, their cousin that has seizures too. But their cousin has seizures and is still going to high school or is still living, you know, I don't want to say a typical life, but a pretty close to typical life.
And our life is anything but typical.
Yes.
You know, there's
exactly. You know, you can say, even Milana's teachers that are used to working with kids all the time, they'll say, oh, did she get the medicine for the seizures? Yes. It doesn't work.
Yes.
What do you mean it doesn't work? Like, it's a type of epilepsy that medicines don't work
It's
for.
not working.
And it's like, well, the doctor has to figure that out for you, right? And you take the breath and say, yes. There's many, 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 many times where doctors have no idea what to do.
There is like, I don't want to say shaming because that's not the word, but there is this sort of like where people have this like, well, no, you know, you got to push harder.
I honestly think that it's uncomfortable for people. They're uncomfortable to know that there can be things that doctors can't fix.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable for them to know that life could be that really that hard for someone, and they don't know what to say. And they're like, oh, you just have to get like some outside help and things will be like.
I actually think that is 100% accurate.
It's hard to live in this world where one day something can just, your life can just change. So
I think it's really
like
hard.
I think
to
it's
look
really
at.
hard. I think you're right. They're just so uncomfortable with it.
I think it makes another level of loneliness because you want to connect with people, you want to tell the story, and then they don't know what to say, and they by accident say the wrong thing, and it doesn't feel good.
And it feels bad because you want to talk about all your kids the same, right? Like that still is hard for me.
Touching on what you said too, though, because it's like sometimes I just feel like it's not our job to educate people.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
The good version of me will like take the breath and be like, okay, you know what? If I explain it, then maybe this person can go forth or whatever. But sometimes I'm just like, why?
We don't have the energy.
I don't have the energy.
You're not going to have the energy every day. I sure don't.
No.
And
your job is huge, right? Like you're a mom of 4 kids, and being a mom of 4 kids, period, is a lot. But you're keeping Milana alive. Like it's a full-time job.
You know, yes, all moms are keeping their kids alive, but your challenge with Milana, it's different.
That's right. Yeah, the things that I do for Milana every day are not things that typical moms do. The things on my mind on any given day, a holiday, a birthday, what's on my mind? Are we going to have an emergency today? Are we going to have to jump in the car? Am I going to have to explain to the other kids that we might be in another state for who knows how long. Is it going to happen today? Is it going to happen in the middle of the night? What am I going to have to bring with me? Am I going to miss an event for the other kids? Like, most people don't go to sleep at night thinking
Get that constant.
Will tonight I have the seizure happen where we have to call the ambulance.
Or we can't stop it at home and we have to go somewhere.
Yes. Is there going to be an ambulance, like, situation? These are big things to live with.
And the balance of, you touched on this, and I remember this with Ethan. You have to drop anything at a drop of a hat to do what you need to do for Milana. But that comes at a cost for your other kids. I do think the flip side of that is, I look at Ethan and he's a typical 19-year-old, but he's a good boy and he is a kind person. And he really has a perspective that is unique. I know your kids have it too, right? Like their normal is different. I wish that you didn't have to learn some of the lessons the way we've had to learn them, but
they do have a unique perspective, and we wish that they didn't, but I mean, they understand, there's so many types of privileges that people have, and there's health privilege and able-bodied bodies, and that's something our kids know about that we wish that they didn't have to, but it's also a good thing too.
I think so. I think it's we're putting kids out into the world that have, like we're talking about kind of the burden of having to educate people, and that burden is also on them. But the more kids that have the perspective that they do, it's better, right? I do think everyone deserves a place at the table. And I think like the siblings, Milana's siblings, Jake's sibling, like they're going out into the world sharing a story that is different.
And they have fresh eyes.
Yep.
And, we don't know how they're going to change the world and what they're going to say and the domino effect.
Yeah.
I know my kids, wherever we go, they'll say, can a wheelchair get in here? And
that's awesome. Yep.
Like more times, unfortunately, the answer is no, the wheelchair can't get in here. Yeah. And they'll say, how does somebody in a wheelchair get to enjoy this? Well, they can't, and they'll say, that's not right.
Yeah. Good for them. That's fair. Awesome. That's a great story. I mean, it's terrible that the answer isn't the right answer more of the time, but that is just their norm. That
is their norm.
Yep.
Or do they have a handicapped bathroom here? Are the questions that my kids will say.
As I was coming here, I was thinking recently the things that we have sort of supported Milana with over the last couple of years. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think it's so important as we talk about just, the needs. We have supported with acupuncture and massage therapy. Mm-hmm. We have a great board, and this year we have 3 new members. And so we're always a work in progress, right? We're always trying to manage exactly like what our mission is and what we're trying to do and make sure that every app we're approving is it making people's lives better? Mm-hmm. Is it creating opportunities? Is it impacting quality of life? Like all of our kind of big questions. But sometimes around the table, someone will say like, how is massage therapy helping? Right? Like why are we doing this? And we always, and we have their healthy conversations. I think of 2 things. One is if people are applying for sort of alternative therapies, for lack of a better word, it's because they believe in them and it's going to work. And who are we to say no, right? Like who are we to be that person that says, oh no, we don't understand it, so no. Jake's tries to always come from a place of yes, right? Mm-hmm. Like if it's something that a family believes in, if it's something that the doctors they work with believe in, it's certainly not our place to say no. But Milana has benefited, and I know you and I have talked about it, but like I think she's done chiropractic, mm-hmm. she's done acupuncture, she does hippotherapy,
yes,
she does massage therapy. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you've said this, but I used to think this with Jake. Jake used to do yoga for the special child, and I always thought that was the most impactful therapy he did, more so than any of the, like I would have gone to the end of the world for Ann Davis, who was his yoga teacher, just because I felt after yoga he was healthier. So I totally understand that. But can you talk a little bit about the benefits of some of these different types of therapies and how they impact Milana?
Yes. So I just also want to point out that every time she's in the hospital, in Boston Children's Hospital, they have on staff medical massage therapists.
They did not when Jake was there. That's
and
awesome.
Acupuncturists.
Really?
And so many of the nurses and even some of the doctors are trained in acupuncture and massage.
That's incredible.
So every time we are in the hospital, I always sign her up for both of those. And it makes a huge difference when she's in the hospital. So at home, massage is actually her favorite thing. All I have to do is tell her that it's the day that her massage therapist is coming, and she almost always smiles. Massage is also the person that I will call when anything comes up that's making Milana uncomfortable.
Okay.
And we have been so lucky to find the therapist that we have. And
She comes right to the home, right?
She will come right to the house.
That's awesome.
And she has such a special relationship with Milana. Milana, of course, has won her heart, like she does with everyone. Massage is the therapy that if she had a terrible seizure and even Tylenol is not working and she just can't settle, massage helps.
Okay. That's awesome.
And acupuncture, by another tiny miracle, she comes to our house. We found her. She's incredible. And she comes right to the house. And acupuncture, I would say, also super relaxing for Milana, but also it keeps her healthier. She will be like struggling with an illness, like on its way out or congested or whatever's going on. You know, the acupuncturist listens, and she almost, like, I would say like 99% of the time turns around within 24 hours of
That's incredible.
acupuncture. Both of those, usually I know that the rest of Milana's day not to schedule anything strenuous or school related, because she likes to relax after those two. She has so much in her life that does not feel good. Like so many illnesses, so many med side effects, so many seizures, so many things I can't control that don't feel good in her body, that don't feel good. And here are these two wonderful things that
make her feel good.
See, she's smiling. You know, she's holding their hands. Like massage, she wraps her arm and leg around her therapist at the time when she says, okay, massage is done. And she will go in for a bigger cuddle. Like, we're not done.
You're not leaving yet. Yeah.
If I won the lottery, I would have the massage therapist that come every
like all the time.
Day.
Well, you touched on two important things. One is, you know, the immune system, right? And I remember this vividly from Jake. An ear infection, right? Like one of your other kids can get an ear infection. They go on antibiotics and 48 hours, they feel better and life goes on. With Milana, no. You know, I mean, I used to think that with Jake, I'd be like, there's nothing worse than an ear infection, because an ear infection, you know, was 2 rounds of antibiotics. And then maybe it was a sinus infection. And then maybe it was pneumonia. Like I felt like everything ended in pneumonia.
It snowballed.
Yeah.
It snowballs very quickly. I forgot to say this too. Her GI doctor actually prescribed acupuncture for her GI system, because she has so much constipation and GI motility issues. We're kind of at the end of like trying all the meds and everything. And so finally, you just said, do you have access to acupuncture?
I love, honestly, hearing that, you know, Boston Children's and these different doctors are really embracing some of these therapies. And I think it's really important. At our next board meeting, I'm going to like bring it up and, you know, and I'll probably follow up with you if you can get, because I do think that's a plus, right? Mm-hmm. Because traditional things don't necessarily work. And when you're working with our population, or not that they don't work, but they
have limits.
They have limits. And we are working with kids and with individuals who, you know, they're atypical and it's not one size fits all kind of care, you know, and then the other thing I want to touch on too is how important it is. And this is one of the things, like, you know, like I was kind of mentioning, like around the board table, like, you know, the podcast is called A Place of Yes, because I used to always say, like, at Jake's Help from Heaven, we want to come from a place of yes. Because people would always ask us, like, do you approve this? Like, you know, it's almost like they want a list of like, yes, we do this. No, we don't do that. And I was always like, if you can provide us with the requirements that we have, you know, which is like a doctor's signature, a letter of necessity, or a script, like, you know, if you can do the kind of basic requirements we need, it's not our place to decide what they need. I love that you have found for her and that you can speak so much to the success of these things, right? Because I do think it goes back to what we were saying. Like, our job is to keep our kids alive, to keep them safe, to keep them thriving. If massage can do that for her, if it can give joy in this hard life.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you also touched on that. Like, this is not just, oh, I don't feel well today. This is,
Right.
her life is hard.
Yes, it's very hard. I mean, you know, like what we would do as moms, like for just the one thing that brings a smile. My goal is just to see a smile.
I think she's mad because we've been talking about massage and she's like, wait, are
Brian
we
jumped
teasing
when I
you?
talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it, but she was
She's like,
like,
but I don't see anybody
There's no
coming.
massage here right now. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Right? You love when Lisa comes.
So one of the things that we have talked about before, I think, is, and I always feel funny talking about this because, you know, we touched on this earlier, right? You never want to say anything that we think would hurt like Milana's feelings or that would hurt Jake's feelings or in any way take away from this life that we lead, right? And I'm always very like cognizant of that because I loved my life with Jake so much. It wasn't easy, but it was just life. And you love life, right? Like you love this life that you're dealt. I always find it tricky to find the right words, but there is this moment. And for me, I've talked before where before Jake got sick, I had this very clear picture in my head. I always, for whatever reason, was thinking I would be walking on the beach, holding hands with Ethan and Jake. And we would just be like on a family vacation and we would be holding hands. And I remember when Jake was 5-6 months, well before he got sick, but, you know, obviously wasn't walking. Like that was just, I was like, oh, this summer or next summer, we're going to like go on a beach vacation and this is what we're going to do. And obviously that vision never became a reality and that it just wasn't our life. Do you ever have those moments like where you think of what you thought life was going to be?
Yeah, I had a picture in my mind of having a whole crowd of children that we would do all these adventures together and have this flexible schedule and go all these places. And when you have a child with these types of needs, that is not a reality.
No.
There's all the feelings that come with, you know, the feeling, but that's what I wanted and I can't have it.
Yeah.
There's the feelings of not only can't this child have it, but the other kids can't have it either.
And that's a different kind of guilt too. There's like the guilt of like, you don't want to be hurtful towards the Milana or the Jake, but then there's the guilt of like,
Yes,
it's different. It's different.
Many things that I have to say to the other kids. I can't do this plan for you, or I can't take this trip, or there's a lot of things because of our situation. It's your baby that you love so much that lights up your life, and it just kind of stinks that it has to come with so much pain.
Yes.
But that's never to say that you don't want the life you have.
I mean, Jake's been gone 13 years now. Like, I mean, that's a long time. But I still have a hard time saying it because I feel like wherever he is, I don't want him up there being like, oh, my mom wished she had something different. You know, like, I mean, that will bring me, like, it's like a gut punch.
You want to get angry because it's really not fair that you can't have just the good. Like, you want just the good. Like, you don't want those bad days because they are really bad and really hard.
Yep.
It's actually a challenge to try to feel all the feelings. It's so complicated. And as moms, we feel guilty. We feel guilty about feeling all the feelings. And whenever the feelings are not all 100% perfect, gratitude, wonderful. And it's not the reality. There's a lot of feelings. You know, you have a child that is medically fragile. The very definition is that life is fragile. The very definition is that here one day and maybe not the next day.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like where people have this, it's uncomfortable, so they want to try to find comfort or try to find a solution or something. But that's the worst part, right? Like I think about the day that Jake died and there was nothing about that day, right? It was just a random Wednesday in December. It was a Wednesday. We just got up and did our thing. Like it was just a day that ended horribly, but it was just a day. And that is, it's hard.
That's true for all
everything,
of us.
Everything.
Like actually all of us.
No, it's true.
But with our kids, we can see it.
Yep.
We can see it. We talk about it.
You think about it, or it's a constant.
Day.
Yeah.
Yes. But the scary thing is it's true for all of us.
That is true. I mean, that's actually 100% true.
But no one wants to talk about it because that's really uncomfortable.
Well, it's true for everyone. The likelihood is less, right? Like for us, unfortunately, it's just more of it's there.
Yeah.
You know, going back to the part, like this is our life, right? And we wouldn't trade it. I feel like I say this a lot. Like as hard as the days are, as lonely as the days are, it's our life, right? And it's fabulous and it's great and it looks different than others, but it's the love and the all of it. Like all of it is good. And you never want to minimize that or diminish it or anything. But what advice? Do you have advice for people? Because I do think, I have this whole like place of yes mentality, of trying to face the world in a really more positive light and not wallow in the like sadness and the darkness, but really just, I don't know, come from a place of yes, try to be the good or find the good.
I actually feel like the most good that I can do, and any mom similar to me, is to be kind to myself, because as a mom and the kind of mom that I am, I'm always thinking about Milana. I'm always thinking about the other kids, but actually that can really run me down to empty. And if I try to do all the things and be the best mom that I can be, I'm actually not going to get the job done on empty.
Yep.
And I can really go, I know for me, I can really go into a spiral of feeling, am I doing enough for Milana? Did I cover all the bases?
And there's always one more thing.
There's always something that you could feel like you aren't doing enough of, or a doctor you didn't pursue hard enough, or a question you didn't ask. I actually think that that's not the best I can do. The best thing I can do, and for any mom to do, is to find a really kind voice for myself and take the time out to say, you are doing a really great job, because that's something that no one is going to tell me every day if I don't tell it to myself. My advice is to find even a minute of the day and be kind to yourself. Be kind about feeling all the feelings. It kind of sucks, like you're a kid, you have to be in the hospital. I hate being in the hospital. Milana hates being in the hospital.
It's the worst place.
It's absolutely positively the worst. And like, not try to force yourself in a moment to feel gratitude. Yeah, there are things to be grateful for, but let yourself have that one moment to say, like, this sucks. Other parents don't have to do this. And just be kind and gentle to yourself.
In this world, I remember it so vividly, like, I should email this doctor, or, someone at the Mayo Clinic is doing this. Maybe this can help. Like, there's that endless cycle of, what should I be doing? I should be working harder. I should be making this better. I should be like, I wish I had you in my ear all those years back, because the other thing that really rang very true to me was when you have a moment when you're just laying with Milana and you know that she is telling you that you're doing good. Like, I know that feeling. Like, I know our kids are nonverbal. They can't, but they express themselves and they make their thoughts clear. And I know I heard that from Jake. It makes me happy that you have that insight.
Not as easy as it sounds, because the days are very busy and you're like always very vigilant, like what's happening, what needs to be done.
Because you just can't,
it doesn't come natural.
No. Like you said, even if it's 5 seconds, like, but just having that pause.
Yeah. And I know there's been times I can remember very clearly, like, where I've been very stressed out over something, that what to do for Milana. Should it be this or should it be that? And I felt like it was such a big decision. And then I would lay down next to her and she would just put her hand on my hand. And I felt like she was saying, like, it's not that big of a deal, Mom.
Relax.
It's great. It's all good.
You can get yourself so wound up, but it's just taking that pause. And
yes,
because your brain can just take you dark places.
Oh yeah, you can keep going and going and going. That is actually very easy to do.
It's easy to go like down a spiral, go down dark.
To worry about a million things, and they're very real.
It's like giving yourself grace, right? Like it's like giving yourself grace and giving other people grace. Like, I feel like both of those have not been natural for me always. Like, I tend to hold people to a really high standard. I tend to, and maybe from just being Jake's mom, just do what you say what you do. Like, just really being kind of vigilant about that, and just realizing, it's not that best. Yeah, you're doing your best, and not everything's a big deal. I always felt like sometimes there were things I couldn't control, so the things that I could control, I just like really locked into.
Yes.
And it's, it's just giving grace, like just relaxing about some of those things.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say to myself.
So we do this part where it's like, and the intent at the end was that I knew in this podcast we would be talking about heavy things. And particularly once we got into it and knowing like the guests I was picking for the show and the people I really wanted to talk to, I'm still Jake's mom. I want to talk about the things, right? Like this is my world. So I'm sharing, I'm with people who share my world. So we thought that we would end this with like, okay, ask Heather anything and have it be really light. What turned out is most people are asking like dark questions.
They're not like, who does your hair?
No one has asked me who does my hair. I will tell you, Liza does my hair at Simplicity. I love her to death.
Do you do Pilates?
I used to do Pilates. Yeah. So, yeah.
I don't know what to ask.
I would give a shout out to Liza at Simplicity. She has done my hair since before Jake passed.
Wow.
So when we were having the funeral and everything for Jake, all of a sudden, I fixated on the weirdest thing. And I was like, my hair's a mess. My hair's a mess. I would need to, and then Brian was like, you need to take go get your hair blown out. Like go take an hour and go get your hair blown out. I walked in, and in those days I was it was like right after he died. I was just like a zombie. And I walked in, I got an appointment. I walked in, she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, Jake died. She's like, what? And I was like, Jake died. And I need my hair blown out. And she was so gracious, and she was young at the time, like in her 20s, had only one child, I think, but she was so gracious and so sweet. And she was just like, gave me the scrape blowout, and she was like, just go, didn't charge me. I feel like everybody in my life a little bit, not everybody, but like the people who are important to me, even Liza, my hairdresser, like has a connection to Jake. Well, Kristin, thank you so much. And Milana, thank you for being a part of A Place of Yes.
So much
I loved having you so much.
We loved this. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming here too, to allow us to be on.
This was perfect. Everything about this was, like I said, I'd been looking forward to this for so long, and it was everything I needed and everything I hoped it would be. Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a thumbs up, or leave us a comment. We would appreciate all that you can do. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend or two. For more information and to leave us any feedback, please reach out to us at jakeshelpfromheaven.org.